The control displays on the LTV can be either bright or dim. The control display is bright when it is active or when selected for change. A control display is dim when another control is selected for changing and when it is not active in the current mode. For example, when pressure ventilation is selected, the volume control display is dim. The display can also be blank. The displays may all go blank when operating on the internal battery in order to conserve power, sort of like when a laptop computer monitor goes blank when you are using the internal battery. You can turn the display back on by pressing any button or by turning the set value knob. The LTV control displays may flash or remain constantly visible. When a control flashes, it means one of the following. If you are changing a control setting and the display flashes, you have reached a limited value for the control. For example, you are trying to set a tidal volume larger than the inspiratory flow allows. If an alarm display flashes, it indicates that an alarm has occurred or is occurring. If a control display flashes, other than when you are trying to change it, it indicates a special condition, such as a time-terminated pressure support breath. If the control lock LED flashes, it indicates that someone tried to change the control settings while the front panel controls were locked. Control settings may be limited to less than their normal range for any of the following reasons. The LTV will not allow inverse IE ratios of greater than 4:1. For example, with an inspiratory time of 1.2 seconds, if we try to set a breath rate of 40 breaths per minute, we are trying to create an inverse IE ratio of greater than 4:1, and the display will flash. The LTV will not allow an inspiratory time less than 300 milliseconds. The LTV will not allow an exhalation time less than 300 milliseconds. The LTV will not allow a flow rate less than 10 liters per minute for volume-controlled breaths. The LTV will not allow a flow rate greater than 100 liters per minute for a volume-controlled breath. The LTV's front panel is very easy to use. We'll start in the lower left-hand corner of the LTV control panel and work our way across and then up. This is the on standby button. When the ventilator is in standby with external power provided, the on standby LED will be off, but the internal battery will be charging. Push the button to turn the ventilator on. The on standby LED will light up. The power on self-tests, or post, are run. During these tests, the audible alarm is sounded briefly and the front panel displays are illuminated. Once post is complete, the ventilator begins operating using the stored control settings. The ventilator will operate on external battery power if it is available, or the internal battery. The battery will be charged while the LTV is on and connected to external power. To turn the ventilator off, press and hold the on standby button for 3 seconds. To make sure that the caregiver is aware that the ventilator was turned off, an in-op alarm will occur each time the ventilator is turned off. To cancel the in-op alarm, press and release the silence button. The ventilator in-op light will be illuminated for 10 to 15 minutes after turning off the ventilator. This lets the caregiver know that the ventilator was turned off within the past few minutes. Next is the breath selection control button. The clinician selects between volume and pressure breaths. Then, while the LED is still flashing, must confirm the chosen breath type selected by pressing the button again. This control is not available on the LTV 900. When breath type has been confirmed, the clinician selects between assist control and SIMV CPAP modes, and then confirms the selected mode by pressing the button while the LED is still flashing. When assist control is selected, the ventilator will be in the control mode if the sensitivity is set to dashes. If the sensitivity is set to any number from 1 to 9, the ventilator will be in the assist control mode. When SIMV CPAP is selected, the ventilator will be in the SIMV mode when the breath rate is 1 or greater. The ventilator will be in the CPAP mode if the breath rate is set to dashes. The ventilator will begin operating in the new mode as soon as the change is confirmed. This is the inspiratory-expiratory hold button. The primary purpose of the inspiratory and expiratory hold feature is for diagnostic monitoring of the patient. To perform an expiratory hold maneuver, press the inspiratory-expiratory button twice. Pressing and holding the button while expiratory is displayed tells the LTV to perform the maneuver on the next breath. After performing the expiratory hold maneuver, the display will show the auto PEEP value. To clear the display, press the Monitor Select button, or it will clear itself in 60 seconds. The inspiratory hold feature is only operable in the volume control mode. All calculations are performed by the ventilator. Next, we have the manual breath button. Pressing this button will deliver one manual breath, not a sigh breath. Pressing this button also sends a bolus of air through the sense lines to reduce condensation. On the LTV 1000, to the right of the manual breath button, you'll find the low pressure oxygen source selector. The LTV 950 and 900 do not have an internal oxygen blender and therefore don't need the low pressure oxygen source selector. When the low pressure oxygen source button is selected, the LTV will accept oxygen from a low pressure, low flow oxygen source, such as an oxygen concentrator, liquid oxygen vessel, or an oxygen cylinder with a regulator. Oxygen from the low pressure source is mixed with air inside the ventilator. Note that the oxygen percentage delivered to the patient is determined by the oxygen flow rate and the patient's minute volume and is not regulated by the ventilator. Clinicians should use the table provided in the operator's manual to determine the oxygen flow needed to reach a desired FiO2. Tidal volume is not affected when low-pressure oxygen is connected directly to the ventilator. However, if oxygen is bled into the circuit, tidal volume may be affected. While the low-pressure oxygen source is on, the oxygen inlet low-pressure alarm is inactive. The oxygen high-pressure alarm is set to activate at greater than 10 psig or 0.7 bar. The percent oxygen display will show dashes and will be dimmed, and the ventilator will not allow the clinician to set an oxygen percentage. When the low-pressure oxygen source is not selected, the ventilator expects a high-pressure oxygen source between 40 and 70 psig or 2.8 and 4.8 bar. Oxygen blending is done within the ventilator. The O2% delivered to the patient is determined by the O2 setting on the ventilator front panel. To ensure that the desired oxygen percentage is delivered to the patient, always use an accurate oxygen analyzer to monitor oxygen concentration. The last button on the bottom row of the LTV is the Control Lock button. The LTV front panel may be locked so that settings are not accidentally changed. Two different levels of difficulty can be set for control unlocking, easy or hard. The easy unlocking method should be used when only trained personnel have access to the ventilator. The hard unlocking method should be used when children or others may have access to the ventilator and you want to prevent accidental setting changes. The LTV comes from the factory in the easy unlock setting. The hard unlock setting can be selected in the Extended Features menu. We'll take a detailed look at the extended features in the next section of this program. Now we come to the Set Value knob, which is used to change the control settings and also to navigate the extended features. Turning the knob clockwise increases the values, counterclockwise decreases the values. The top row of the control settings starts with the breath rate. This control sets the minimum number of machine or assist breaths to be delivered each minute. The breath rate can be turned off or set from 1 to 80 breaths per minute. Next is the tidal volume control. This control sets the volume of gas delivered to the patient for volume-controlled breaths. The LTV can deliver volumes from 50 milliliters to 2,000 milliliters. When tidal volume is being updated, the calculated peak flow is displayed in the display window. Next is the pressure control button, which is not available on the LTV 900. This control sets the target pressure above 0 centimeters of water pressure for pressure control breaths. The LTV can deliver pressure control from 1 to 99 centimeters of water pressure. The inspiratory control sets the length of the inspiratory period for volume and pressure control breaths. The LTV uses the inspiratory time and the volume control setting to determine the peak inspiratory flow for volume-controlled breaths. While the inspiratory time is being updated, the calculated peak flow is displayed in the window. Pressure support sets the target pressure above 0 centimeters for pressure support breaths. If pressure support is set to dashes, all patient breaths will be given as spontaneous breaths. Inspiratory flow for pressure support and spontaneous breaths is controlled to meet the patient's demand. The range of pressure support is 0 to 60 centimeters of water pressure. The oxygen percentage control is available only on the LTV 1000. It sets the percentage of oxygen to be delivered to the patient from 21% to 100%. Note that an accurate oxygen analyzer should be used to monitor oxygen concentrations. The sensitivity control sets the threshold to allow the patient to flow trigger assist and patient breaths. A flow trigger can occur only when the ventilator is in the exhalation phase, after the minimum exhalation time of 300 milliseconds has expired. The sensitivity can be adjusted from 1 to 9, where 1 is the most sensitive and 9 is the least sensitive. Or, the patient can be locked out by setting the sensitivity to dashes. The final group of controls are for the alarm functions of the LTV. They are located above the Set Value knob. The high pressure alarm control can be set from 5 to 100 centimeters of water pressure. The low pressure alarm control can be set from 1 to 60 centimeters of water pressure, or it can be turned off. The low minute volume alarm control can be set from 0.1 to 99 liters per minute, or it can be turned off. You will learn more about the high pressure, low pressure, and low minute volume alarm controls in segment 11 of this video. The Alarm Silence Reset button is used to silence an alarm for 60 seconds. To reset an alarm and to start a 60-second preemptive silence period. The Monitor Select button is used to view monitored data and to enter the Extended Features menu. Remember that when you turn the LTV off, it will save the current settings. When turned back on, the LTV loads these memorized settings automatically. This makes it easier to power up the LTV, especially for home care patients. they don't have to reset their controls